The U.S. has begun setting the agenda ahead of next year's review of the Canada-U.S.-Mexico trade agreement. This week, the top U.S. trade official laid out the irritants it wants gone, including both the Online Streaming Act and the Online News Act. Supply management is a big target of the U.S. They also take issue with procurement measures in Ontario, Quebec, and BC that they call discriminatory. And the U.S. wants provinces to get rid of their bans of U.S. alcohol. And, because it goes on, they want to revisit Alberta's, quote, unfair electricity distribution to Montana. Now, the Prime Minister met virtually with Canada's premiers today to talk about Canada-U.S. trade talks. Just before the meeting, reporters asked Mark Carney whether supply management was fair game in those talks.
Not on the table. We have discussions. It's a negotiation. Each side has a set of issues. They put those issues on the table. They're measured in the dozens of issues. The U.S. has 54 issues with Mexico, for example.
Joining me now for more on that meeting, Scott Moe is the Premier of Saskatchewan. Welcome to the show. What updates did the Prime Minister give you in terms of the status of the U.S. talks?
A good update, not only with the U.S., but with other countries as well that we're engaged in, whether it be China, whether it be India, or potentials we have in additional countries as well. But I think he spoke to some of the issues that we need to work through, whether it be Canada and the U.S. or whether it be Canada, U.S. and Mexico together, to ultimately get to what we would hope would be a renewed trade framework, similar to what we have in the USMCA. So he gave a fairly high level overview of where we are. And ultimately where we're going. And yes, we did discuss some of the comments that were made with respect to maybe some irritants that the U.S. sees with Canada moving forward. And those will be part of the discussion, but I don't suspect that means there's going to be, an absolute, giving in on each of those topics, but they definitely can be part of that discussion.
Now, in terms of the sectoral tariffs, it does sound like the Prime Minister is acknowledging that any deal on those will be part of the CUSMA review as opposed to something ahead of that review. What's your reaction to possible immediate tariff relief, perhaps not being enough to tide us through to that review? Because that review is going to not exactly be quick and dirty.
No, and I wish it would be quick and clean, would be the ultimate way to be. But you're right. And the sectoral tariffs are causing, I think, real pain in various provinces across the nation. I know we're feeling it very much today in not only the manufacturing sector, and we've made some efforts in the steel sector, but the forestry sector is really, I think, feeling it as we speak. And we've seen some difficult decisions made in British Columbia. We may have some challenges coming in our province and in other provinces as well right now, but add to that the manufacturing sector and others. And so the sooner that we can get to some trade certainty in this space, I think the better it is for obviously any of those sectors that are being hurt. I would say this, and this doesn't in any way buffer or replace the challenges that we're seeing, but overall, the Canadian economy seems to be moving along by the macro statistics, which is a good thing, and I think speaks to the opportunity that we have to determine our own destiny in a number of spaces. And I think we really need to focus on that while we focus on dealing with getting to some trade certainty, not just with the U.S. but a number of other countries all at the same time. And so a lot of capacity is going to be needed right now, and the premiers, I think, are fairly unanimous in committing to supporting the federal government in those negotiations and bringing them to a good spot where we can.
Now, Carney continues to put the ball in the U.S. court when he says, in terms of sectoral tariffs, that if they want to come back to the table, he's ready. And yet it's not up to him. He says it's up to them. But do you think that we should be pushing the U.S. to get back to the table on that? Or is it okay just to wait for the CUSMA review?
Well, I think the sooner we're able to get to the table, the better, whether it be for the CUSMA review or even to talk about some sectoral tariff relief. In particular, I think the urgent one is would be the forestry industry today. But in saying that, these are the American tariffs, and if they don't want to engage on it today, then I think it's incumbent on us to ask to engage on it tomorrow. And if they say again tomorrow, I suppose that is the way it is. I was just down in Washington a couple of weeks ago, and that was my urging: is let's find our way back to the table. Build a strong North American economy that is going to allow us to make the investments in North American military security, make the investments that we have always looked at making, and now I think in the military space, most certainly as Canadians are making. And so the sooner we're back to that table, the better.
What kind of response did you get when you made the push to get back to the table on perhaps sectoral areas? What kind of response did you get?
I think there is a realization, in particular on a number of products, that we are going to have to find our way to that table. It's the president ultimately that's going to be making the decision on when that occurs, and it would be my hope it's sooner rather than later. And then the broader CUSMA or USMCA review, that's going to be an important piece as well. But I think it would be ideal if we could have some sectoral tariff relief prior to that. I think many of the premiers would agree with that. I don't know if we're going to get it.
Now, we know that the U.S. is removing sanctions on potash from Belarus, and Trump is threatening sanctions on Canadian fertilizer. How much of a threat is that to Saskatchewan?
We're always, watching and fully aware when a significant customer for us of potash is making those kind of comments and making decisions about really, moving back into potentially buying some fertilizer from other areas, namely Belarus in this case. However, it's a global market and always has been when it comes to potash. It's only available in a certain few places of the world. It doesn't just be produced because you say it should be. It's only available and operational mines are only a few places in the world. Belarus is one of those places. Saskatchewan is the largest provider of fertilizer in the world, about 35%, and an increasing level coming over the years ahead. So we're very aware of it. I wouldn't have a sense that this is an immediate threat that the United States of America or anyone else is going to automatically access all of their fertilizer from Belarus. It's always been a global market. Belarusian fertilizer has been flowing into countries around the world, and there's only so much of it to flow. And so, we watch it closely, but we just, as we always do with the president's words, is we take a breath.
Senior Canadian officials are in Beijing this week, laying the groundwork for a possible visit from the Prime Minister next year. Your province is dealing with 75 to 100% Chinese canola tariffs. How crucial is it that Carney make that trip to Beijing?
It is crucial, and there's some work to do, and I'm glad. I think Cody Blois is on the ground as parliamentary secretary as we speak, and I've been in touch with Cody on numerous occasions, and we'll be talking to him again on his return. It's absolutely imperative that we get to that visit, that second visit, and I know Cody will be working hard on that. He joined us in our visit a few months ago, but we also need to have the stage set, so to speak, so that visit of those leaders can actually progress the negotiation or progress the trade opportunities that we might have, which I would suggest are much larger than just canola, pork, and those products that are tariffed today. I think there's an opportunity for us, if we're serious about expanding our trade beyond the United States of America, to really look seriously at the opportunities in China and India and many other countries around the world. So it's important. It's important that we have our Prime Minister there as soon as we're able to, progress those talks to a point where we can really get into the negotiations and expand that relationship beyond just the products that we have.
I only have a minute left, but speaking of opportunity, we have these impact assessment deals between the feds and Ontario, between the feds and New Brunswick. We have the MOU with Alberta that could lead to exemptions from the tanker ban and clean energy regulations. What do you think would be fair for Saskatchewan? You looking for an MOU of your own?
To some degree. We're working closely with the federal government on, some of our electrical transition as we look to invest in nuclear power over the next number of years, and how we can get there, ensuring we have reliable, affordable power for Saskatchewan residents, but also for the industries that we're attracting here in the mining sector and the oil and gas sector and others. And I think all of these agreements that the federal government is embarking on, whether it be the MOU, whether it be the discussion about the port-to-port corridor, LNG to Churchill, or oil to the West Coast, or potentially looking at some of the bottlenecks that we have in port access and getting projects built. That really is determining our own destiny as Canadians, and it's I think of vital importance as we do all of this negotiating with various countries, namely the United States of America, that we are determining our own destiny, having these agreements, pushing the projects forward to that can move forward to create that strong, resilient economy. This is the most crucial piece of everything that is going on right now.
Thank you very much for your time today. Saskatchewan
Thank
Premier
you.
Scott Moe.